So, what is a file? File is a tool of hardened steel in the form of a bar or rod with many small cutting edges raised on its own longitudinal surface. It is used to remove fine amounts of material from a workpiece. It is common in woodworking and metalworking and other similar trade. So, in using a file, it is usually used by hand from the action of back and forth by rubbing it from the workpiece in order to use its function. So files are used to square ends, file rounded corners, remove burrs from metal, straighten uneven edges, file holes and slots, smooth curved edges, and etc. Meaning to say that files are used for smoothing, finishing, and straightening edges and workpiece. So in classifying file, you need to take in their cross-sectional shapes, the form of cutting edges, and the coarseness of the cut. For the cross-sectional shapes, there are at least 20 different cross-sectional shapes. The most common are rectangular with various width to thickness ratios. For the teeth form, there are 3, which is the single cut, double cut, and rasp. And as for the classification according to coarseness, there are 6 main classes, which is the rough, coarse, bastard, second cut, smooth, and dead smooth. So when you are classifying a file, you need to take in these 3, their cross-sectional shapes, the form of cutting edges, and the coarseness of the cut. As files have many uses and there are various types and forms of files. So first of a file, the first of file is the tip or point, face or side, edge, heel, shoulder, tongue, handle, ferrule, and material. As for the tip or point, it is the end opposite to tongue, meaning it is the one end of the file. As for the face or side, it is the broad part of the file with teeth cut on its surface, meaning it is where the teeth were located for the file. As for the edge, it is the thin part of the file with single row of parallel teeth. So the edge has also a teeth but is not the same as the face or side. And as for the heel, it is the portion of the broad part without the teeth. So heel is also at the broad part, but its only difference from the face or side is it has no teeth. But the heel is only a little portion of the broad part. And as for the shoulder, it is the curved part of the file separating tongue from the body. The tongue is the narrow and thin part of a file which fits into the handle. So meaning to say that fang is the in between in the face or side and the handle. The handle is the part fitted to the tongue for holding the file. This is self-explanatory. As for the ferrule, it is a protective metal ring to prevent cracking of the handle. So the ferrule is there for protecting the file in damaging it.
Next is the important characteristics of files. Files are defined by a number of different attributes. The most important of these attributes are the ones that suit it to specific tasks. For the first important characteristics is the file name. This will be the first thing that will give you a clue about what a file should be used for. Although it's important to bear in mind that files may have multiple uses. For example, a chainsaw file which was designed to sharpen chainsaw blades is useful in the creation of F-holes in violin making. In other cases, files are named according to their shape. These types of files are often referred to as machinist files. Next is the file cross-section. The cross-section or section of a file is the shape it forms if you look at it end-on, with the point aimed at you and the tongue pointing directly away from you. There are a large number of different cross-sections. Each file guide lists the cross-sectional shape of the file it is describing. The cross-section of a file is often governed by its intended use. This only means that a file has a wide variety of cross-section which is used differently. So we have to identify, or we have to consider, the cross-section of a file so that our work in a particular use would be easier. Next is the soft files and machinist files. Files can be classified into two different families: the soft files and the machinist files. Soft files are designed for sharpening, whereas machinist files are designed for shaping and smoothing. Soft files are usually rhomboid or triangular and have a cross-sectional shape that will fit into a particular tool that needs sharpening. For example, a file designed to sharpen a rib cut saw is shaped like an equilateral triangle so that it can fit perfectly between its teeth. A machinist file's cross-section is always suited to the shape of the surface it is designed to work on. For example, a square file will file straight edges and square-shaped slots. Next is the file profile. The term profile refers to whether or not a file tapers towards its point, or its edges remain parallel. The terms outline or taper, on the other hand, can also mean the same thing. The taper of a file can sometimes differentiate from another type of file that looks quite similar. For example, round files and chainsaw files are both cylindrical, but a round file tapers to a point, whereas a chainsaw file does not. As you can see, I am describing the characteristics of a particular file because as I am giving emphasis, the file's unique characteristic will be useful in its particular use, and one has to understand that knowing the particular use of a particular object, not just the file, will give you a more efficient and easier way of doing your work. Next is the file cut. The term cut refers to the way a file's teeth have been chiseled into its faces and edges. The term or the number of surfaces with teeth is sometimes a factor in identifying file type. Some files are the same shape, but the cut of their teeth results in their being called by a different name. For example, hand files and checkering files are similar shapes, but checkering files have specially cut teeth that are not found on other type of file. So I'm also describing here the shape of a particular file that has a wide difference from one file to another, and knowing the differences of the shapes of a file comes with its different use, and with that you were able to use it more efficiently. The location and type of cut can often be quite specific depending on the type of file. This is explained in each individual file guide. For example, seating and slotting files are similar shapes, but slotting files are only cut on their edges. So we have two different but way similar files: the seating file and the slotting file. The seating file, as you can see, can be cut triangular, like that, triangular. However, the slotting file, you can cut it in this shape, like a rhombus shaped file. So that's the difference of the file. It can be this, the seating file. It can be like this, the slotting file. Next is the coarseness. Coarseness refers to how closely together the file's teeth are cut. Teeth that are cut close together are described as fine, and teeth that are more widely spaced are referred to as cores. As you can see in the file, at the tip of the file, at the point of the file, you can see the teeth of the files. And observing those, you can see the spaces, the white spaces, or the closely tight, closely packed teeth. So when you see that the teeth of the files are closely together, you can classify it as a fine file. However, if you see that the file's teeth are quite spacey or widely spaced, you can classify it as coarse. So that pertains to the coarseness of the file. Then lastly is the size. The defining measurement for a file size is its length. Files tend to range from 100 mm at their smallest to 350 mm at their longest. So that's all for the importance of the files. I hope you learned something. That's all. Thank you.